CEO of Rivian, and we're at South by Southwest. This is such a massive event for you guys. If you aren't here, Rivian is absolutely everywhere.
Yeah, it's amazing. I mean, we've got our space here, and then downtown we have a lot where we put a large pile of dirt. You know, I think people were surprised to see it, but the activation is that people get to try the vehicle off-road. It's running at huge angles. You know, it's a big playground, so it's been really cool to see the line of people so excited to try it.
So can people actually drive it, or do you have someone driving them?
People are being driven.
Okay.
Yeah.
I was gonna say, you don't want a lot of people here just like hopping in and we're just gonna go up this mound of dirt.
Yeah, we should do that. Maybe next year.
Maybe next year.
Yeah.
Yeah. So what's it like for you kind of coming here at South by? Have you guys been here before? Is this kind of your first time?
We've done some small things here before. So last year we had an R2 that wasn't part of the main event, but was just here. It was actually right after our launch event in early March. But now with this space that we've activated, so this was built and finished, I think about maybe 4 or 5 months ago. And so we really turned this into this awesome Rivian house. We embraced this idea of a roadhouse, a cool sign, which I want to leave out, which is electric roadhouse on the road. But the idea was the combination of creativity, focus on sustainability, and just the drive towards innovation really fits so beautifully with what we're doing as a company. And so we were excited to be part of it.
The last time that I saw you, it was about a year ago, and so much has happened. And that was the launch of the R3 and R3X. Kind of walk me through, like, what has this year been for you guys? Because it's been pretty massive.
Yeah, it's been a slow year, just really calm. Yeah, so at the R2 and R3 launch event, that was the first time we showed our future products to the world. You know, these are really important for us. It represents a step change in volume for us because the price point of R2 starts at 45, and while we haven't announced R3, we've said the pricing will be quite a bit lower than R2. And so those two products really allow us to have much more of a mass market appeal. So a lot of work has been going into making sure the launch is flawless. The products are, you know, going to be as good as everyone hopes they'll be. And so I've been spending a lot of time on the product development, the product testing. And I mean, I say this all the time, I think R2 will be the coolest thing we've ever done. So it takes all these learnings from R1 from a cost and manufacturing point of view and really marries them with a product concept and a product, you know, set of features and attributes and characteristics that are just so unique at a $45,000 price point.
No, I mean, that's huge because I do feel like it is definitely a higher price point. So bringing that down, and that's going to be opening that up to so many more people. Something that I thought was interesting is I go to Hawaii very frequently. It's like my favorite place ever. And so when I got my R1, gosh, it's almost a little over a year ago, I hadn't seen any Rivians in Hawaii. And it was so weird because I was so used to being in California.
Yeah.
And this year, I just got back a few weeks ago. There was a ton of them on the road.
Yeah.
And it was so cool to see kind of like that transition.
Yeah.
So are you seeing that kind of more, that they're kind of like venturing out of the
Well,
zone?
it's a good point. I mean, when we go into a market like Hawaii in particular, something that's like truly an island, we have to make sure we have service and infrastructure support. So we hadn't launched in Hawaii yet, and we now have a service center there. And the product fits the market so well. It's an active market, and the ability for the vehicle to fit your gear, your friends, your stuff just translates so well. And so I'm so excited to see the product doing, you know, the vehicle doing so well in Hawaii. But we see that elsewhere. So, you know, maybe they're not necessarily islands as we think about different cities across the U.S. As we add service infrastructure or retail infrastructure, it really opens those markets up. And I'm the same as you. In California, you know, you see Rivians everywhere. And then you'll find yourself, and like I said, on the East Coast or in the Midwest, and you're like, wait, there's not that many Rivians. And over the course of this past year, that's changed a lot. So, you know, a lot of the cities in the middle of the country, up and down the East Coast, we've started to really build out our infrastructure. And there's a ton of excitement for the vehicle.
Yeah, and building that infrastructure, like, it's not just charging, because now you do have an open network with Tesla, and that's incredible. But it is like the service.
Services.
Things go wrong,
Yeah.
and you need to be fixed.
Yeah.
So how's that kind of determining, like, where do you determine like the market is?
So we have about 70 service locations today. We're adding another 30 or so through the end of this year. And then we have a very large network of service vans and mobile service vehicles. So we have, I should know the exact number, I think it's around 700 mobile service vans. And so that the nice thing about that is if your vehicle needs service, we can come to your house or come to your apartment or come to your work and make the repairs. And so building out the infrastructure and the network such that we can keep up with demand is really important. And in a few areas, it hasn't built as, you know, we got a little behind. So in the Bay Area, we're a little behind building our network. Pacific Northwest, we're behind. But over the course of the next few months, we're adding a lot more service, what we call like infill. So there's service coverage, but there needs to be more service capacity. But this is a huge area of investment for us. And I spent a couple hours yesterday where I had a service, and we're so excited about what's to come.
No, it's great. I've had the mobile service several times, and it's been cool. It's just, like, rolls up, and then everyone's like, "What is this?" Like,
Yeah.
the neighbors are like, "What's in that van?" And they did give me a little tour the last time. They're like,
Yeah.
"Do you wanna see inside?" So, kept trying to take photos.
Yeah.
So, I think that's so great for people too, and I feel like with traditional vehicle makers, like, that's not something that's common.
Well, yeah. So today, about half of our service is done with mobile. Our internal target is for that to be much higher. Not only is it less investment in physical infrastructure, but the customer experience is awesome because you don't have to do anything. The vehicle can sit in your driveway, and we come to you. So that's something we see as a trend that over the next 4 or 5 years, increasingly customers will be looking for. Okay, I like Rivian, I like the products, I'm connecting with the brand and the mission of the organization, but I want to have service come to me. And so that
Right.
we see as a real sort of aspect of what makes us attractive over time.
People just see Rivian kind of popping up out of nowhere. They're like, "Oh, this just happened." But it's been a long road for you.
Yeah.
So, what has that journey been like? Because it hasn't just been the last few years that this has just kind of magically developed.
Yeah. So I started the company in '09. And the challenge of starting a car company is it requires so many things all in parallel. So you need a tremendous amount of capital, many billions of dollars of capital. You need thousands of engineers. You need really robust and large supply chain, hundreds of suppliers making thousands of parts, a plant that will take years to build. And in the beginning, you have none of those things. You have no capital, no technology, no product, no brand. And so it's this complex, like interdependent loop of, well, I don't have money. So how do I develop technology? I don't have technology. So how do I raise money? And so the first few years took a long time just to get some momentum and demonstrate to some of our earliest investors that, hey, we've got a long way to go, but we have some interesting ideas and we're a team worth investing in. One of the things that's amazing is most of our earliest employees are still with the company. So of the first 10 or so employees, I believe like 8 are still here.
Mhm.
And so hearing, now within the company, people often call them the OGs, 15, 16,000 people at the company now. But the spirit of what we started the business with, many, many years ago, to translating that to today is still the same. We're like trying to challenge convention, drive innovation into what we're doing. And it's just been a crazy journey that I look back and it feels like yesterday. The whole company could have fit in a room smaller than this.
Yeah.
And suddenly, as you said, we're seeing Rivians everywhere. And with R2, that will really represent the big step change for us. That's, the price of the vehicle is about half of what the R1 is. And as I said, it's a really cool vehicle.
You said, like, the spirit, and, like, it's strange because the first time that I went to a Rivian event was the opening of the Laguna Theater,
Okay.
and there was just, like, this energy, like, it was so magical, and at the time, I didn't have a Rivian yet, but my sister had one, absolutely loved it, but there was just something about talking to the people and talking to the customers who had them, that they were just so passionate and so happy, and they loved them so much. I was like, "I need one of these."
Yeah.
So, I bought it on the spot at that event,
Really?
and I had, do you know Rivian Dad? Have you met him
Yeah.
before?
Yeah.
So he was so great. He's like, "Okay, you want this, don't get those tires, do this." And he, like, basically helped me, like, spec mine out, and it was in inventory, and I got it, like, 4 days later.
Amazing.
So it was like that whole process, like, I was so sold on the culture, and, like, I'd never really felt that before, and now having one, it's like I'm meeting to other Rivians on the road. And is that something that you guys kind of you cultivated from the beginning, or do you think it's just kind of has happened
Well,
authentically?
yeah, it's culture and brand. They're really hard things to like deterministically design, meaning they're an outcome of so many different factors and so many different inputs. But again, it feels like moments ago. I remember we'd be at a whiteboard or in a presentation going through our goals and what we hope to achieve. One of the words we used probably more than anything else 10 years ago is the idea of creating a brand that's really inviting
Mhm.
and creating a brand that draws in people from all walks of life, different political views, different, economic backgrounds, just a whole different range of perspectives, and aligning everyone that comes into the brand, or having a point of alignment around, just having an optimism for our future. Born out of that was this idea of our kids, and looking at the world through that lens. And it's just resonated really well. And I joke that we've been able to deliver that in our products and in how we show up and in every little decision. I mean, the chairs and as are used furniture, we have polished concrete floors that are not too fancy, but everything wants to feel really usable, really inviting. We do the same in the vehicle. But all those decisions, those little micro decisions, all added up into creating a canvas on which our customers are now helping to paint this amazingly inviting picture with us. And so I joke, you go to a Rivian like community event and it's like the United Nations. It's like a rare situation where you have different sides of the political spectrum, uh, different views on almost any topic, except there's an alignment around embracing an active lifestyle and alignment around in embracing a world that we want to have better for our kids and their kids and their kids. And there may be different views on the tactics of how we do those things, but the alignment around the mission is so clear that it just draws people together. And so we try really hard, especially in a time like this where you've got lots of separation happening from a societal point of view. We have different groups forming and there's tensions between different political views or different ideologies, that we try to draw ourselves back to what's common and what unites us as as a society, as a species. And fingers crossed, it's working well. It's people are connecting with that and seeing that.
Yeah, and I think also just getting out, and like that is
Completely.
as soon as I got it, I was like, I have to go somewhere. Like, where am I gonna go? Like, well, I drive to the gym, I drive around. I was like,
Totally.
take it on an adventure.
So I get tons of emails from customers, and some of them are like, I have this issue, can you help me fix it? And of course, we respond to those. Those are fun. But my favorite type of email is a customer that doesn't actually talk about the product, but talks about what the product's done in terms of inspiring them. And I had a email from a customer maybe 3-4 months ago, and it starts off by describing how their life has changed. That 20 years ago, he used to ski all the time. Life got busy, stopped skiing, stopped doing these adventures. And he's like, I don't know what you did, but I bought a Rivian and somehow it's inspired me to start skiing again.
Yeah.
And I'm in the best shape I've been in years. And thank you for doing that. I'm like, awesome. Somehow
So great.
we built a brand that has inspired people to say yes to adventure, to say yes to things that, you may, the kinds of things you want to remember for years and years, but the daily grind of life maybe has you saying, oh, I'll do that tomorrow, I'll do that later. And to be able to inspire people is really something we've always talked about as a brand.
Well, I think in like showing people the things you can do, because like in the normal everyday car, like you can't do those kinds of things. So giving people the vehicle, the choice, and like, hey, here's all the options of things that you can do, and
Completely.
you can do that with electric and actually be helping the world. So like, you've been into cars for a really long time. So going back when you were like a kid, even for me, like I've always loved tech, and so I knew I was going to do something in that. So you always knew cars was your thing. So at what point did you kind of think the cars that I like are kind of harming our environment? So I need to kind of shift.
I was probably like 13, something like that. I grew up like from this tall, like I don't know why or how, but I was just so into cars. I knew everything about every car on the road. My parents used to laugh, that I would be able to say that car has this engine with that amount of horsepower. I started to realize that they were the source of lots of challenges for us as a society, and everything from local air quality to, of course, climate. And then I got really bummed out. I was like, oh, the things that I've like loved since I can remember are a problem. And I felt conflicted. Like, was it wrong to like something that was also the source of a lot of problems for us as a planet? And then I realized, well, actually, I should go work on that, and decided I wanted to dedicate, myself to working on that as a challenge. Rethinking personal transportation.
At
And
13.
yeah, like when I was like a kid, I knew I wanted to start a car company, but I didn't know what that meant.
Yeah.
It's sort of like, what do you want to be? I want to be start a car company. I want to go be a superhero around it. Like these kinds of things that you think as a kid maybe aren't realistic, but I really did want to do it. I really did want to start the company. And
Well, it's realistic. 'Cause look at you right now.
yeah,
So it's incredibly realistic.
I mean, the thing that's amazing is I have 3 kids now, and I remember talking with my dad on this. You think to yourself, your kids come to you with all kinds of ideas. My middle son wants to be a professional football player,
Okay.
and I'm like, ooh, I'm a little worried about that, but okay. But I reached my dad and told him this. He's like, yeah, you should totally do it. And like, what an amazing reaction for my dad to embrace something that, as an adult and as a parent, he, of course, knew the likelihood of that working is, a very, very, very small probability. But his support helped me and focused me in school, and ended up going to school for mechanical engineering, focused on automotive, and did a master's, PhD, and then started Rivian. And, 15, 16 years later, here we are.
Yeah, I mean, it's just a small little story, just a little journey. And I guess, I mean, for your dad too, like, I know, like, what did he think when, it actually started happening?
Well, in the beginning, it's really hard because you don't have any of the ingredients. As I said, you don't have capital, you don't have customers. There's no clarity on what the brand is. And I actually, I was really cautious on even talking about it. Like when I was in school, when I was in grad school, I didn't tell anyone like I was working on this. I was really
Mhm.
sensitive to the fact that I knew a lot. If I told people, especially people that were intelligent and smart about automotive, they would quickly tell me that the probability is like 1 in 1 billion that this could work and talk me out of it. So my dad uniquely was the opposite. He was like, of course this will work. It's going to take time. It's going to be really hard. But so he was so optimistic. And then once I started it, you can imagine going into like an investor pitch, provided you can even get a meeting with
Right.
a investor. But you get in and you're like, well, I'm starting a car company. They say, okay, tell me about what it is. Well, I don't know. I'm still figuring out what the car looks like. Well, what's the brand? Oh, we don't know that either. Well, you must have some great technology. Not yet.
Mhm.
We will. I promise. Well, what does your supply chain look like? Doesn't exist. Well, do you have a plant? No. You go through it, and by the end, you're just like, oh,
Right.
like, and of course, the predominant response to that was, well, good luck, but
Yeah, but, like,
this isn't for us.
why didn't you just tell them your dad said this is gonna work out?
But my
Like
dad said I could do it. Yeah, so there was, classic entrepreneurial story, just a lot of rejection in the early days. That's probably an understatement. And it took a lot of just perseverance to work through finding a way to get enough capital to prove out some capability, convincing people to join the company.
Mhm.
I remember the first few employees didn't have kids. I remember the first person that joined that had kids. I was like, ooh, this is serious. Like,
Yeah.
we have to, like, I can't screw this up.
Mhm.
And then I remember there was like a holiday party, and it was the first time we had maybe 25 people. The holiday party was everyone came over to my house and we cooked dinner together. And I saw all these kids. I'm like, oh my goodness, this is like very like. And I in my head I'm
Yeah.
thinking, well, we have maybe a week and a half of payroll. Like things were very very tight. And so, but it was wonderfully motivating, and it was the challenges of all that. I look back now as like type 2 fun. It's like all the
Right.
things that I really probably love the most about the journey is those early, really challenging, like the sleepless years.
And I think that's good too, because it's like when you are younger, like that is the time to really be able to do that. Because as you do get older, it is more difficult. That's such a great lesson. Just having one person believe in you
Yeah.
is really all you need. Getting all of that rejection, I think it obviously does make you stronger and you're like
Yeah.
so adamant, like this is going to work.
Yeah.
And I think it's such a fun story and it's
Oh,
really
totally.
cool
Yeah.
to hear.
Yeah. It informs like that, as you point out, that informs so much of how I approach parenting. And, now I'll spend time with entrepreneurs who are just starting a business. And I had coffee over the weekend with somebody who was starting a business, and they were asking me some questions on fundraising, and it was nostalgic remembering those moments for myself. I could so quickly relate to the feeling of, someone saying, I don't want to invest, or I don't think this is a good idea.
Yeah.
And to look back and appreciate that is really, it's a special thing. So I actually told her, I said, look, you're gonna have a lot of people that are gonna tell you this isn't gonna work, but if you believe in the idea, you'll keep at it.
Yeah, I mean, there's definitely somebody that will do it. And I think even sort of like in my same journey, it was rejection after rejection. They're like, "What are you doing? This is stupid." And I'm like, "Well, look at us now.
Yeah, yeah,
Like, here we are."
yeah.
And I think it's just really interesting to kind of like stay with the times as things change. And everything's changing so quickly now with AI. And I guess how are you guys kind of approaching AI? Are you integrating that into the vehicles now? I mean, I know there's already some AI that people don't really see or think it's AI, but
Yeah.
it's in there.
And so I think about AI in the broadest sense, there's of course in the vehicle sort of self-driving, and our Gen 2 platform, which is the updated sensor set and compute stack in the vehicle. It has a lot of headroom for us to grow the capability of the self-driving platform. We're going to see the features and the capabilities expand dramatically over the next year. And I think this is one of the most exciting parts of transportation, is the idea that the vehicle can increasingly drive itself. As it is today, our Gen 2 vehicles, 20% of the miles driven in those vehicles are actually driven by Rivian. And we, of course, think that will go to 50, 60% pretty quickly as the features and the capability grow. But then there's, how does AI apply to the rest of the business? So manufacturing, operations, and it's remarkable to look at how we're rethinking how we run the business and how we scale. You think about what's happening at a macro level. We have this big shift off of fossil fuels towards sustainable renewable energy. that's going to play out over the course of our life. So this is going to be like a complete remapping of the global economy around electrifying everything. And I thought, boy, how lucky am I to be alive in that? I thought that was enough. Like, wow, this is great. And now somehow on top of that, we have definitely a more impactful shift from a societal point of view, which is we're seeing the birth of AI. And we've seen it, I'd say broadly through the view of large language models. But as we start to think about embodied AI in the physical world, so how does AI apply to robotics in a plant? How does AI apply to service? How does it apply to running a business, logistics, supply chain? And so it's just mind-blowing to map out in your head what the next 10 to 20 years are going to look like. And so we have a significant amount of focus on that. Obviously, a lot of R&D going into that, a bunch of things we're working on that we haven't yet talked about. This is, I think, maybe one of the most exciting moments I could say to be alive and be thinking about technology and product development.
Yeah, I mean, I love autonomous driving. Like, I mean, I also have Teslas and I do have a Cybertruck. And that is one of my favorite features is being able to drive and eat because I'm always on the go. So how far off are we with Rivian to be able to do pretty much full autonomous?
So we have announcing here very soon, or coming out very soon, is we have a hands-free highway feature, which is going to be nice. So so today we have a level 2 feature, which is the vehicle will drive itself on the highway, but you have to keep your hands on the wheel. We're about to let you take your hands off the wheel. And that's coming with an over-the-air update. And do you have a Gen 1 or a Gen 2, Rivian?
I think one. It's okay. We can do an upgrade.
Yeah. In a Gen 2 vehicle, you'll be able to take your hands off the wheel. And that's a really nice thing because you can eat, you can do all sorts of things. The next step from that is to be able to take, or to be able to apply that feature to more and more roads. And so we're working towards a turn by turn. So you can get in your car, plug in the address, and the vehicle will drive completely there. And do that in a hands-free setting, so hands off the wheel. And then the next thing is hands off the wheel, doing that, plus eyes off the road. And we'll start with eyes off the road on the highway, but over time we'll grow eyes off the road, so hands off, eyes off. You'll really have truly your time back. So you'll be able to text, you'll be able to eat, you can have conversations and be really engaged in the conversation. And that's all going to be happening like very quickly. And that's the part that is sort of mind-blowing, like in the next few years, that we think that's going to become an expected feature and something we, of course, want to continue to lead in.
Yeah, I can't wait. I mean, even just having conversations, like sometimes when I'm with people, like, you need to be quiet because I need to focus right now. So I mentioned I have a Cybertruck, which I do really like driving it. But it's been kind of tough because I feel like now, having this truck stands for something different, which I'm like, I just liked it. I pre-ordered it 5 years ago. Like there's been like protests, like somebody threw little tiny marshmallows all over my Cybertruck as some sort of weird protest. I've seen other things. So I mean, how are you guys kind of like navigating that? Because you guys are Tesla partners as well. I use the charging network. So like, how do you kind of feel about the whole landscape of everything?
Yeah, look, in the US, we have about 8% of new vehicle sales are electric, which is wildly off of 100%, as we have another 92% to go. And to get there, we need to have lots of choice. We're not going to be able to get to 100% electrification with 3 or 4 great choices. We need to have hopefully hundreds of great choices, but even having tens of great choices would be great. I think there's a perception often that there's going to be like 1 or 2 winners in the electrified space. And I think it's just it's not appreciating the fact that we as consumers like to have choice and variety. And that exists in many things. It exists in almost every designed aspect of our lives, whether it be furniture or clothing or housing design. There's a desire for personal expression or things that fit your specific needs. And so what we have today in electrification is just a lack of great choice. To date, if you look at vehicles priced under, let's say, $50,000, I think there's really been like one really compelling, great solution, which has been Tesla with the Model 3 and the Model Y. We're excited to bring R2 into that to give customers another choice. It's very different than Model Y, but I hope there's more. I say all that as context to try to deflate this idea of like the Tesla fans that are against the Rivian, or we should be looking at Tesla, we should be looking at Rivian as a society and saying, we want all these things to be successful.
Right.
And they absolutely can and should coexist. And Tesla has some great products. And I think because of how politicized and charged the country is, it can be challenging sometimes, especially right now. So we just try really hard to, as a company, be as inviting to all points of view as possible, and to not try to in any way overlay a point of view into how we show up. In terms of like trying to in part a political point of view. Now we have strong points of view on things like sustainability and things like climate, but not trying to venture into the political world.
Yeah, and I mean, it's tough. Like, even just driving around, I'm like, good thing I have tint. Kind of on like that same note, just seeing more Rivians on the road, seeing more EVs, and more of them are kind of popping up. Are there any others that you've seen that you're kind of like, oh, this is interesting. They're doing cool things in the space?
I mean, I'm excited to see the large incumbent manufacturers invest. It's you take, I think some of the products that have come out of Hyundai are really interesting. We're now partnering very closely with Volkswagen.
Right.
I think there's some awesome products coming from them. Of course, we're developing a lot of the software and electronic stack that go into those vehicles. They just showed an ID.1, which is going to be in Europe, which is super cool. I'm excited to see more products come, but we have a long way to go. We have a long way to go to give customers choice across all the form factors, all the sizes, all the price points. We're doing our part as a company with R2, then R3. You can imagine there's going to be an R4 and R5. So there's going to be a portfolio of products with different use cases, form factors, price points, but that does take time. I wish it didn't. I wish we could have them all immediately. But the big first step on that is R2, which launches early next year.
You guys are a car company, but you're also a software company too. So now kind of like taking that partnership with Volkswagen, do you see that as something that you would be partner with others in the future? Or like, how does that all kind of work?
We did a $5.8 billion deal with Volkswagen that licenses and leverages our software into a joint venture. It's a giant deal, and it really represents just the opportunity for us to have impact beyond our own brand and our own products. And so I was ecstatic about the ability to help accelerate the development of amazing products for a set of brands, because the Volkswagen Group is, it's Porsche, Audi, Volkswagen, Skoda. There's a range of brands in there, Bentley, Lamborghini. And so there's a bunch of different avenues through which our technology can now manifest. And that's a big activity. There's a lot of programs that are coming. Step one is first digest all of that. We have R2, we have R3, we have a broad portfolio of products through the Volkswagen Group. And then we are considering other manufacturers as well, but we want to make sure we knock all those out of the park first.
No, that's awesome. So now kind of going back to, being a CEO, busy, doing all of this stuff, I'm sure it's super stressful. But what do you do to kind of stay healthy and be the best that you can be for your company, for your people? And I'm so into like health tech. So is there anything, do you have any like crazy health tech or any health hacks? Okay, well, all right.
Nothing that would surprise you. I try to exercise. I love to be outdoors. I mountain bike, I hike, I ski. I do sort of lots of different outdoor active sports. And I try to eat really healthy. And then the thing I try really hard at, but don't do so well at, is to get enough sleep.
Yes, that is difficult.
And my Whoop reminds me of that almost every day.
Right.
You're severely undersleep, your recommended sleep levels. It's something as I've gotten older and really like look back at myself when I first started Rivian, and even into the early years, even maybe recently, learning that a big part of my job is to make a relatively small number of very high quality decisions, meaning there's lots and lots of decisions, but there's a handful every day that are really important decisions. And to the extent that I, as you put it, I'm rested in the best mental state to make great decisions, to lead the teams, I'm better at my job. And so finding ways to manage my energy, thinking about the cadence of things I do throughout the course of the day. So if there's a hard personnel discussion, followed by, let's say, an interview like this, followed by a product review, like it's a bunch of things that don't naturally fit together.
Right.
So now I'm like really maniacal about making sure the flow of my day makes sense, from ensuring that I can be my best self across all those different things that I have to do as part of my job.
So we're actually doing a chat later here at South by, so we'll basically just be repeating this entire conversation. So hopefully that'll be just prep. Yeah, this is just some prep. So hopefully our energy will be good for that. So you talked a lot about your kids and then your kids. And was that something that you also thought about when you were younger, or is that something that you kind of thought of when you had your first employee that had kids?
A lot of that was born out of this realization that there's so many tactical items that we can be divided on as society, but there's a few singular threads that carry across every culture, every political ideology, and different socioeconomic levels. And it's this idea that we care about and love our kids and want to create a world that's better for our kids. That's a beautiful unifying characteristic. We may debate how we do that. So we may have very different views as to how to make the best world for our kids or our kids. But I think it's really valuable to take a step back and reflect on the fact that we actually agree on this core thing. And when you agree that your mission is the same, your vision is the same for what you want in the world, and we're simply debating the tactics of how to achieve that, I find it reframes your mind. So it's not like, hey, we're against each other. Actually, we have the same objective, but we just disagree on how to get there. That was one element of it. And the other was, we have lots of decisions we have to take, and many of them are not simple. There's complex trade-offs, and often there's lots of debate and discussion. And so this kids concept was something we developed to help orient us towards how to make these decisions. And it's a framework for looking at a decision through that lens, which tends to force you to look longer term. And for us, it's the shift off of fossil fuels, which is inevitable. That's going to happen. Whether it happens in the next 10 years, or the next 100 years, we have a finite fuel supply. We need to move off of it. It's polluting our air. It's carbonizing the atmosphere. And there's a lot of debate around how quickly we move off of it. And you see that particularly in the United States as a political debate. But the reality is it's going to happen. And so our view is, we think the sooner we can make that happen, the better. It'll create giant new industries. It'll ensure that we continue to be a world leader in technology. But reframing that actually changes the discussion quite a bit. And so I find even folks that are not necessarily, let's say they're not pro-electrification,
right,
or pro-sustainable energy, when you reframe it and say, well, in 2 or 3 generations, the world won't be running on fossil fuel. And so we as a country need to continue to be leaders there. We as a country can help design and build that future industrial ecosystem. It's like, oh, okay, yeah, we do need to do that. And we just find it helps align different points of view around a time scale that makes sense.
Yeah, no, it's awesome. And I mean, I feel like now, like, your kids only know electric, so they're not going to.
Oh yeah, my kids, to them,
yeah.
One of my kids saw like a weed whacker with an engine on it, and it was like mind-boggling to them. They could not understand. They're like, why would you put an engine on the end of a stick that spins a thing to cut the grass? I'm like, well, that was how it was done for a long time before we had electric weed whackers. And it's interesting growing up. My kids also don't understand the idea of a telephone.
Right.
So it's a totally different perspective.
They're like, no, we FaceTime.
Yeah.
Or we do a Zoom call. And even just like watching my niece like use an iPad.
Yeah.
And then her go to a computer and she's like, what is this mouse? And she's like, oh no. And then she's like trying to touch the display. Yeah. So it is interesting. It's kind of like, you're building what you want for them to have for their future.
Yeah.
So this is awesome. Well, thank you so much. This was so incredible. And I look forward to our talk in like a few hours. So if you guys are at South by Southwest, hopefully you guys caught it. And if not, well, you can watch this instead. Thank you so much. It was awesome.